Hey, this is Mad Movie Mark with the Mad Movie Mark Movie Review. Thank you for joining me as I review the 2014 Spanish drama Hilda, or I've Never Had a Hilda. Hilda has a 100% fresh rating on Rotten Tomatoes from the critics and a 72% fresh rating from the audience. This movie stars Adriana Paz as Hilda and Veronica Langer as Mrs. Marchand. Now, in this movie, Mrs. Marchand and her husband are very wealthy. They have an entire staff of waiters, waitresses, help. I don't know what you would call them because I've never had one, but they have a big staff of people that help them. Now, their son and daughter-in-law are coming to visit or live with them for a while, it seems like, and they are bringing their child. So Mrs. Marchand has decided that she needs to hire a nanny of sorts to watch after the child when the parents are not able to do so, and to also be like another maid around the house. So she has this gentleman she knows who is Hilda's husband, and she says, hey, like, you think your wife would be able to be a maid for us? And he says, oh, probably not, because we have children of our own. They're very young. She wants to be with our children. And she kind of like guilts him into having her do this. So he says, okay, fine, like she can be the maid for a little while until you find someone else, essentially, slash caregiver for the child. So Hilda starts, and she does not want to be there. She wants to be with her children, which I cannot blame her. She does not want to be working. She doesn't want to be working for this woman. She doesn't want to be a maid, but she puts a smile on her face and she does it anyway, and she does the best she can. Now, when she first starts her job, a huge red flag in the beginning is that Mrs. Marchand takes her cell phone away from her and hides it, so she cannot have any contact of her own with the outside world. Now, she ends up taking care of the child. Everything seems to be going good for a while, but Mrs. Marchand slowly becomes more and more possessive over Hilda, becomes more and more angered by people who want to be around Hilda, and she finally she has a lot of security around her house. Like I said, she's very rich, and she finally tells her security guards, like, don't let Hilda off the premises unless I approve it. Now, she tells Hilda, like, I need you to stay a little bit longer without going home. Hilda says that she doesn't want to do that. She wants to go home and see her children. She's already been there for a couple weeks straight. She has very young children at home, and she wants to be with them. She wants to see her kids and be a mom. Now, Mrs. Marchand decides to call, like, immigration or something, or she pretends like she's going to call immigration to, like, say that Hilda's there when she's not supposed to be or something. So Hilda agrees to do it because she doesn't really have a choice. Now Hilda's there for like a few more weeks, and then her husband finally calls Mrs. Marchand, and he's all like, where's my wife? She hasn't been home for the kids. We haven't seen her. We have a wedding we're supposed to go to tomorrow and she's not here. And Mrs. Marchand says, oh, she's probably never coming back. She likes it here. She's forgotten all about you and the kids. I wouldn't worry about it. Now, of course, as a husband, you're like, okay, this isn't right. She's obviously not allowed to leave. So he goes down there and he tries to save her from Mrs. Marchand. And when he gets there, of course, it's a gated area. It's like Fort Knox. You can't get in. He calls out to the guard. He says, hey, like, I need to see my wife. And the guard says, no, that's not possible. We have strict orders from you. He's supposed to remain on the premises. There's nothing we can do about it. And he says, well, I'm going to call the cops. He says, fine, we own the cops. We buy them and sell them all the time. Call whoever you want. We'll just give them more money, and they'll be on our side. So he's kind of in a bind here. He has really nothing that he can do to see his wife. Now, this is kind of where the movie gets a little weird to me. So her son, Mrs. Marchand's son, who is the father of this child that Hilda's supposed to be watching, he is kidnapped. And he is kidnapped by some foreign agency. I think no one, like, they say so. They say at the end who he's kidnapped by, but it's all over my head, to be honest. Now, while he's kidnapped, Mrs. Marchand goes into this deep depression. She relies on Hilda even more. She like is more possessive over Hilda. Now his wife decides that she's going to leave and go back home to be with her parents because she wants to be around her family and not around his family. And right when she's about ready to leave, he is returned and he is unharmed. He was in jail for a while, or not, he was in jail, he's like imprisoned. And he is a poet and he was writing poetry on the walls while he was imprisoned. And now, somehow, I believe the people who kidnapped him end up going to Mrs. Marchand's house and they end up protesting, and they climb the walls, and they're able to get over the side of the walls because the security guards for Mrs. Marchand are playing arm wrestling because they were having an argument earlier over who is stronger. So as they're arm wrestling, these people are able to scale the walls. It's complete mayhem. Hilda's husband is able to get in there, but he's not able to talk to her. He's not able to speak to her. Now, while these protesters are in this room, in the house, they end up causing this really big scene. And the next day, while Hilda's husband's while he's in the house, he ends up going to the dinner table and he ends up saying, like, I'm going to tell everyone here, all of your guests, that you have kidnapped my wife. And they say, yeah, sure, go ahead. It's not going to matter. Tell everyone. Have at it. So he says, like, my wife is being held here against her will. And no one seems to care at all. They all just go about eating their food and doing their thing. No one seems to care. So the next day, Mrs. Marchand's husband leaves her. He says he's going to go away and that she's on her own. Hilda decides that she is going to bust open the drawer with her phone. She does it. Mrs. Marchand does not take any action against her, does not try to stop her. Hilda, I believe, is then able to go back to her house because at the end of the movie, we see Mrs. Marchand looking at other maids who just happen to be hanging out at the same park one day, and she sees a maid with a child and she asks her name, and I don't remember the name. It starts with an A. It's like, let's just say it's like Adriana. I don't remember what the name actually was. And she says, oh, I've never had an Adriana before, which is exactly what she said about Hilda. I've never had a Hilda. And that's how the movie ends. Now, I actually think a lot of this movie is very, very good. It's fantastic. The acting from Adriana Paz, the acting from Veronica Langer are extremely fantastic. The dialogue that they're given, the subject matter is amazing. The fact that it's a psychological game, the fact that Hilda is not able to leave, she's imprisoned, she slowly becomes more and more depressed. She slowly becomes more and more to the point where she's not talking to anyone. She's just keeping to herself because of her depression. You really feel for her. You really want her, especially as a parent, you really want her to be able to just get out there to her kids and see her kids again. And you feel really badly for her. At the same time, Veronica Langer's character, Mrs. Marchand, you really feel like she's the villain here. You really root against her. You really want something bad to just happen to her so that Hilda can run off and be on her own. They do a very good job with the roles that they're doing here. Fantastic acting, absolutely amazing. It really draws you into the movie. I really didn't expect that I was going to like this movie as much as I did. It's the third movie that I've had about a maid, and I was kind of over it, but it's so different than the other two movies. I'm not used to this psychological type of movie that involves these type of characters, involves this type of profession, involves a woman who is obsessed with another woman. You don't get a lot of those type of movies, and it was just fantastic. I didn't know what the movie was going to be about. I really didn't see it going in the direction that it went. I was very pleasantly surprised. Now, unless I really missed something, and I thought I was paying very well attention to this movie, it really grabbed my attention. I was completely confused by the protesters. So apparently the Marchands do something where the protesters were saying that they're torturing people, and I'm assuming they didn't torture their own son. They're not the ones who captured him and put him in prison. So I was really confused as to what they were talking about and how the Marchands are these really bad people. They're very rich, so you could assume that they are bad, that these people are not just saying that maybe they are. I just couldn't, it was like out of left field for me a little. It almost felt like they were trying to rush the ending of the movie a little bit by not explaining what was going on and not very well explaining as to what the motives are of these people, how the Marchands are criminal. And I honestly, at the end, I was so confused. I couldn't put any of it together. I was just happy that Hilda's husband was able to see her, and at the end of the movie, she gets away. I mean, I can forgive the confusion a little bit, but not all the way. Just because I don't know. The movie was so good up until that point, and then I just totally got lost. Maybe it's my fault. I didn't pay enough attention. Maybe there were a lot of like little nuances that I missed. It's possible. I don't always watch these movies in one sitting because I have a 1 year old child. I watch it when I can. I come back to it, which is why I don't do like reactions because sometimes I watch a movie over 3 days. So maybe through the course of watching this movie, I did miss something, but I was totally confused as to what was going on at the end. Absolutely bewildered. But the movie up until that point was fantastic. The ending is very satisfying, except at the end of the movie, she's just going. It seems like she's just going to imprison another maid and do the same thing, which you don't want that to happen. But you know, it is what it is. She's just going to continue down this track until something stops her. She just is going to continue to get more and more crazy. I feel like more obsessive over people, and you know, maybe this will spawn another. Maybe this will spawn another movie. Maybe it'll be like a trilogy or something. I don't know. But I give this movie an 8 out of 10. I thought it was good. It could have been great, but the ending really ruined it for me. I hope you join me next time when I review Get the Trial of Vivian Anselm, I believe is what the movie is called. And spoiler alert, it is absolutely fantastic. Thank you. Have a great day.